Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to this evening's Facebook Live. Thank you very much for taking time out of your evening, putting Netflix aside and spending your evening with Jackie and I. So
Are we more interesting than New Amsterdam? Ooh, big call.
Yeah,
in
please
this
add that
household.
into the comments. Really, is this your new addiction?
Yeah, it is. I love it.
It is. I think a lot of people have got very into their binge watching. We'd love to know that if that's you at the moment. But if you can add in the comments now if you've started watching. I've got 3 screens going on here, so I'll see what's going on in the comments. But if you can just let us know where you are from, where you're tuning in from, and also how you are going. How have the last couple of weeks been for you? Put in some words there and let us know what has been going on for you. We know, obviously, Jackie and I have been experiencing it ourselves too. It's been a bit of a crazy roller coaster ride the last couple of weeks, and we just wanted to jump on here and answer your questions, see how we can support you, answer your questions on mental, physical well-being, and yeah, share our ideas tonight. So loved your questions so far. We are going to structure tonight's session around some of the best questions that we've had. Thank you very much for that. Just to let you know that we have got an amazing prize pack, haven't we, Jackie? So first thing in the prize pack is something from you. What is the first thing in our prize pack?
The thing is my book. If you've got little people. Oh, that's my husband listening to us in the background. Let's just get an echo. Plus the baby that's also in the background to keep the children asleep. This is my book. It's called When the Wind Blew. It was released in February, and it's for little people in our world, aged between 4 and 9. And it's a story, but woven through it is psychology strategies to help kids be calm. So the 3 main emotions in there are worry and anger and sadness. So the moral of the story is, how do you find your superpowers to help be calm through this time?
You're amazing. Oh, amazing. And I'm very much looking forward to, I've ordered my copy, so it's I definitely need it in this house. So that is one of our prizes. The other prizes, we've got some exciting things. We've got a 12-month subscription to Healthy Food Guide online, so you can get all sorts of healthy recipes and get your healthy eating habits on track. No surprise, a copy of my planner is in there. We've got some little shampoo and conditioner. I don't even know if you can see that with the light. Shampoo and conditioner bars. Little chopping board in there. We've got a healthy recipe book. If you are trying to drink a little less booze at the moment, we've got a bottle of this, which is Seedlip, which is basically
boozeless booze.
Boozeless booze, which is actually a very good thing if you're trying to reduce your alcohol intake. And then we've got one of these. These are my new obsession in my life. These what I call everything bags. So these are little bags to carry all your goodies in, and they're fully insulated and brilliant. So win one of those as well. So anyway, we will share the link to how to win one of those, but we will now get into your questions. So thank you for the 10 questions. If you've got any questions as we go along, please add them in the comments, and we will either answer them as we go along, or we will answer them at the end. So the first question I've got from people who have submitted their questions before is for Jackie. And the question says, I'm finding it really hard to live a happy and purposeful life with the horrors going on in the world. Do you have any advice? So over to you.
And I suppose my question is, are we talking COVID horrors, or are we talking, collective
everything else
horrors, terrorist attacks in Auckland? It's kind of like you turn on the news and where's the good news story in there, isn't it? And that really fine balance about, how much should I be knowing and how much should I be watching? And so just before I talk about the finding the purpose for you, I think one of my little mantras that I have remembered for the last 18 months, because we are now in a stage where, Claire and I did these last year, and we probably didn't think that 18 months later we'd still be on here in lockdown. And we are. And so I think it's this, there's no end point yet. We don't know what we're working towards. Human beings like clarity. We like plans. We like to hold hope in terms of being able to picture what's coming up. And, I think in terms of what's going on in the world, one, in our personal lives, it almost feels like we've restarted. We're back at square one now with Delta, and like how many times is this going to keep continuing, and that's really difficult for people. And I think it just, whether you're looking, as I said, environmental, war, terrorism, it's pretty shocking and has large impacts on people. So one, I think it's be informed but not consumed, and I know I've said that before, but know what you need to know, but don't just sit there and soak it in all the time. The thing with consuming media and information is if you turn on the 6 o'clock news or the 1 p.m. briefing, you're purposefully doing that. It's an action, you know what news is coming, and there's an end point to it. 7 Sharp or Shortland Street or whatever is going to come on afterwards on your television. If you are on social media all the time, you don't know what's going to pop up in front of you next. And so a lot of people are actually really struggling because, 1 second you might be looking at your friend's cute baby pictures and the next you're looking at a really horrific image. And that being taken by surprise without having that pre-warning can have quite big impacts on people. The other thing is that Facebook is an algorithm and it's just going to keep spurting the same stuff at you. So if you've been interested in what's going on in Afghanistan or what's going on with Delta or COVID, you're just going to keep getting more and more and more of that. And you don't know what's fact or not often in that. So, one is be informed but not consumed. The second, in terms of finding purpose, I think it's been this period of time is what we're now calling a very long period of ambiguous grief and loss, because the world in which we know, our lives in which we know it, have shifted and changed, and we have to adapt with that. And so our mental health and well-being and finding purpose, we can do that individually, but we also have to be really mindful of the impact of the environment on us. And right now it's a bloody tough slog. And so the how to help that, I would say, okay, sit down and go, how do I want to feel for the rest of 2021? Rather than I want to achieve this or I want to do that, start with the feelings. I want to be calm. I want to still experience joy this year. I want to feel connected to people in my life. Whatever the emotions are that are important to you, start there and then go, okay, how am I going to achieve that? So if I want to feel connected and I'm living in level 4 lockdown, I can't go to wines on a Friday night with my girlfriends like I used to. I can't see all my mates at soccer on the weekend or whatever you do and normally get your connection that way. It's like, okay, there's a barrier that I can't control there, but how else can I feel connected and who do I want to feel connected to? Then you're actually in a place where you can problem solve, which also puts you in a place of power rather than powerlessness. And so I think it's about being really clear with the expectations with yourself, having self-compassion for yourself, acknowledging that it's just bloody hard for all of us at the moment. Claire and I were talking about before we came online, we were joking that everyone just thinks that we live these like amazingly put together life. And if I just like spin my camera slightly, washing, let's just do a spin of we don't have a put together life, you just see a frame. And I think it's just really important to hold that self-compassion for yourself and really focus on you and your well-being and how you want to get through this from an emotion perspective.
Amazing. And likewise, I've got
he's not going to spin your camera.
Okay, no, it's just chaos. I've got my Wiki Wednesday, dress up things, mess everywhere.
I'm just getting my charger. Sorry, as you go. So
No, not at all. And I know it's certainly from something that I've chosen to do in terms of managing just the negativity is I treat it actually the same approach that I actually take with people when trying to encourage people to change the way that they eat, rather than just focus on taking all the negative out, focus on putting more of the good stuff in. Okay. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to eat sugar. I'm not going to eat this. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. It's like, well, yeah, but if you're eating, and currently the new updated recommendations of vegetables is now 5 handfuls of vegetables and 6 for a man, more vegetables, more fruit, more nuts, more unprocessed food. The negative stuff, actually, the food that's less good for you kind of falls away. So one thing I have done is I've tidied up my feed, right? I'm I've got inspirational quotes in there, people that are motivating, that make me feel good about my life. I'm playing, the algorithm of social media to my advantage to drown out the noise. And watching trashy TV that is, a little bit I watch, British dating shows and a little bit of, British comedy and stuff like that.
It's a bit of joy. It's a bit of lightness.
Otherwise, I'm like, I literally, do I need to watch the news again? So reframing that, because otherwise your brain will continually just seek out more negative and more negative. And it's the same with food. I strongly encourage, and if you are trying to improve the way that you eat, pay less attention to what you're trying to take out and more attention to what you're trying to put in. Because
and the neuroscience
when you focus on the good.
Sorry to butt in, Claire, but the
no, not at all.
To that is, once you've got a habit in your brain, it's very difficult for it to go away. It's like if you've got a motorway in your brain, it's never just going to dwindle off, but it's better to build a super freeway next to it rather than try and get rid of the motorway. So it's that building that new pathways in your brain.
Love it. That's such a good analogy. Love a good analogy. Thank you. Right, so the next question is for me, and we're going to take turns in question. You'll see this pattern coming up. Hey, Claire, any tips on creating a sleep schedule and sticking to it, and how to become more of a morning person? So I'm big on sleep, and yes, I focus a lot on nutrition, but I feel in my work over the years, when you are sleeping well, your ability to regulate your appetite, because the hormones that control your appetite are controlled by the amount of sleep that you have. Okay, so your ability to regulate your food intake is better. Your ability to be motivated to exercise is better. So sleep has to come first. Okay, so great that you had a question on this, and I know so many people struggle with that. Consistency and routine. So your body runs on a circadian, roughly a 24-hour rhythm. The closer and more consistent you can keep to that 24-hour rhythm on a daily basis, the better, including the weekends. I know that it doesn't mean you have to get out of bed, but it's not a great idea you can't catch up on sleep like people try to do. It is much better to try and keep a consistent bedtime and a consistent thing in the morning. That is the easiest way to get your body in a better rhythm, because the predictability, basically your body then expects that to happen. Okay, so consistency in wake time and bedtime, very important. The other thing, so how easy it is to fall asleep at night actually correlates with something that you do in the morning. Okay, so your brain's signal to release melatonin at night is around 12 to 16 hours after your eyes have been exposed to natural light in the morning. But that needs to be before around 9:30 in the morning. Okay, so your brain needs a signal. It's daytime. The best signal for you is natural daylight. Okay, when you expose your eyes to natural daylight in the morning, 12 to 16 hours later, you'll release melatonin, which will help you fall asleep. One of the biggest challenges that I have seen with people during lockdown or a change in circumstances is that there's no need to go outside the house before 9:30 in the morning, right? You don't need to. Before you needed to. You needed to get on a bus, you needed to get in the car, you needed to get your kids to school, right? Now, you might do all your morning things and not go out until 10, 11. Please let me know in the comments if this is you. I would absolutely love to know if your routine has changed in the morning, right? But what that means is that the signal for your sleep has changed. Some people never got that in the first place. And I've worked with people a long time trying to get them to, and this is what I've done myself. When I was dropping the kids off at school, I parked the car like just round the corner of the road and just walked that 5 minutes to school, did a small loop on the way back. It was 13 minutes was my normal round loop, but that was enough to tell my brain that it was morning time. And then that helps me signal that the evening time. It is totally the best thing that you can do. So people love to latch on to, it's this one thing is going to change your life. No one thing is going to change your life or your health or well-being. It is always a combination of everything. So circadian rhythm, which is signaled by consistent bedtime, consistent wake time, signal to the morning light. Whether you're a morning or an evening person is in part your biology, your genetics, right? Some people are naturally more morning people than evening people. It's a very difficult thing to change. Some people switch between the two. But again, if you want to be more of a morning person, you just actually have to train yourself to get up at a consistent, slightly earlier time and go to bed at an earlier time. But it doesn't mean you'll find it as easy as someone that's I'm naturally a morning person, totally useless after 9 o'clock. And I'm zippy as you like at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is very annoying for people that are not morning people. The last tip I would give you just on sleeping well at night, just things that you might not be aware of, is it's really important you drop your body temperature at night. A lot of people have their rooms too warm. I know that it is nice to get in a cozy bed, but part of the signal to go to sleep is getting cooler. So what you can do is have a warm shower before bed. That's again away from a device, away from a screen. It helps relax you, cool your body temperature, and that will probably help you sleep a little better. So yeah, those are my tips that you may not know about on sleep.
So the people just asked, Claire, do you have to be outside for that light, or can you see light from inside?
No, so you've got to be outside. So it's roughly a 50% reduction through the window. If you think about the lux of the light outside is around between 10,000 lux to 100,000 lux. 10,000 lux very cloudy, 100,000 lux super sunny. Inside, you're talking like 200 to 300 lux light bulbs. Right, not the same. I know that it looks the same, but outside the sun obviously is dispersed everywhere and it's completely different. So the impact we are not designed to live inside, right? None of our, a lot of the way that we live, we're not designed to live in buildings through windows with no nature and artificial lights. It's a completely false environment, and it's screws with you in ways that, and then what happens is people live in these weird environments, which the body's like, what's going on here? And then wonder why we, want to eat too much, aren't motivated, aren't sleeping properly. We're not designed, to live in these environments. So I will come back to any of those questions just to make sure that I hand over to you, Jackie, on the next one. So the next question is, a lot of people around me, this is so true, and I've got this, I understand this myself. A lot of people around me are feeling flat, stressed, and overwhelmed with lockdown. And I sympathize, but I'm feeling super drained by their energy and finding it really difficult to be supportive. It's dragging me down. How can I stop this? I'm working full time at the moment and juggling. So totally true. How,
yeah,
is it possible to chirp someone else up?
I'm going to split that in two. So firstly, what is this feeling of meh that all of us have got going on at the moment? Because I think it's very fair to say, if we compared lockdown this year to lockdown last year, the vibe is very different. The vibe this time, people can't get out of bed in the morning because meh, what's the point? The vibe is, I'll just watch another episode of Netflix. The vibe is, I can't get my motivation up, etc. And the feeling that many people have got at the moment is that they are languishing. And that might be a new term for people. But when we think about mental health is a continuum. This is not mental illness. Mental illness is different. This is mental health, which we all have like physical health. And mental health goes from flourishing up the top of that continuum down to languishing. And flourishing is you're living your best life. You've got lots of positive emotion. Your head space and your thoughts and your emotions are helpful for you. You're connected to people. You've got purpose. You're living the good life. That's flourishing. The bottom end of that scale, languishing, and the definition by the researcher Corey Keyes talks about languishing is around emptiness and stagnation, feeling stuck, feeling empty. And it's a pretty hit you, where like a hit you definition. Often when you hear those words, you can feel it: stuck, emptiness, stagnated, lost, empty. And for many people, that's actually how they're feeling at the moment. And with that comes all the things that we know when you're kind of stuck. You can't concentrate very well. You're often quite negative. Your focus might be self-focused because your body's probably gone into like survival mode where it's focusing on you and what you need, but other people might find that negative and frustrating. And that languishing can not only impact your life because you're energyless, motivationless, negative, etc., but it also can be a gateway into things like depression. So it's not depression because people that are languishing still have hope. It's not burnout because they still do have energy in the day, but it really is that feeling of meh. And when you look at the research around how do humans psychologically cope through long-term crises, this makes absolute sense. We see that at the very start of a crisis, people's well-being and mental health goes down. We saw that last year in level 4 lockdown. Distress rates increased three times across the world. Anxiety and depression doubled. Our young people actually found the start of COVID hardest. So 18 to 34-year-olds had the worst impact. You then see like this honeymoon period in a crisis where we all pull together, we're all going to be kind, we're going to be a team of 5 million, we're going to get through, we're going to have hope. And then as a crisis continues and goes on, disillusionment happens. We have a big sense of loss together, collective loss. People get fatigued and tired, and that languish sets in. So I just thought it's quite useful to provide some feedback and some understanding of why people are in that space. And I think that not being able to see the end contributes to that. In terms of, well, what do I then do if these people are in my life? Well, firstly, let's look at it from an individual point of view. And emotions are contagious. People are contagious. So if you surround yourself with people that are pragmatic, that hold optimism, that start every day afresh, that will rub off on you. Same thing, if you surround yourself with people that see doom and gloom everywhere, that will start to seep into your mindset too. So I think firstly it's about sitting down and going, who do I want to spend time with in my life? And where do I want my energy to go? And I'm going to start prioritising that for me. So there's a researcher called Shasta Nelson. I did a podcast with her this year on frientimacy. She's probably one of the most amazing people I've interviewed. And she's got this theory around connection because it is a critical component of our well-being, which says good social connections have 3 components. One, they're consistent. So we've got consistency in that relationship and consistency back and forward. So I'm not the only one always putting in the effort. That effort is to and fro. The second is positivity. So it doesn't mean our lives have to be going well all the time. But when I hang up the phone or I leave that interaction, I feel good rather than feeling drained and shitty that I've spent time with that person. And the third is intimacy. So that's not romantic intimacy. That's basically they're people that I can talk with below shallow conversation topics. So I can actually say, I'm languishing at the moment, or I'm finding this really hard, or let me celebrate this success with you, or let me talk to you about what's been triggered for me, or whatever it is. It's like you're more than just surface chatting. So when you think about the people in your life, who are the people that are consistent, positive, and that you have that connection and intimacy with, and prioritise them. The second is the people that are finding, that you're finding it hard to be around. Do you need to have them in your life? Would be my first question. For example, family is kind of more going to be in your life than perhaps an acquaintance that you actually can make an adult decision and say, I'm not going to invest in that relationship anymore. But if it is someone that is in your life and you want to be in your life, one, I'm going to ask, has that person always been like this, or is this a COVID stage of life shift in their mood and in how they present to you? And if so, it's kind of holding the pre-COVID, pre-Delta version of them as you see them now, because we know if you look at that research in terms of how people's moods are, there's reasons people are struggling. The second is, can you switch your mindset, aka am I helping them by connecting with them? We know that social connection is really important. So if they're in a bad headspace, can I be a positive influence on them? How am I presenting? Am I getting sucked into the doom or gloom, or can I balance that out for them a little bit? If I'm offering support, actually that's going to help my well-being, but it might also help shift them. So it's kind of like, what's the purpose of the interaction? Choose the people that have got your consistency, positivity, intimacy as your social connection fillers. And if there are really important people to you that aren't in a good space, categorize that in your head as, I'm in this interaction for them at the moment. I'm serving them, and that actually might change your expectation on what you're getting out of the interaction at that time. And hopefully, as life goes on, as hopefully we come out of lockdown, you will see those people, if they're pre-COVID selves, if they're pre-lockdown, really like this, they might come back.
You can only hope. I mean, it's just you never. It's like the strange parts of other people come out, don't in these times of stress, and sometimes you may know people really well, and you'll see parts of them that you've never seen before, because they're just, this is their way of not coping. And I think that certainly something I've noticed is that people struggling comes across in very different ways, and even just being aware of that actually, like me not coping, I'm ratty, whereas other people are very introverted or
careful, or
exactly. And just being aware that other people's behaviors may not be the same as yours, like in terms of how that's definitely something I've personally had to learn, is that when other people are feeling stressed and down, it doesn't look like it looks for me. So they're not being rude or defensive or whatever else. It's actually just their way of struggling.
They might be struggling. Someone said, do you think that the seasons have had a difference? And yes, I really do. Last time we were in summer.
Totally,
this time it's raining. I've got 2 kids at home and I can't take them anywhere or do anything with them. So people can't get out and do their exercises easily, etc. So yes, I absolutely do think the seasons have
totally
a compounding impact, which again talks to the complexity of what's going on for us as human beings at the moment.
Amazing, thank you so much. I'm just going to answer a couple of the questions that came about the I do workouts outside at 6 o'clock in the morning. Is this enough light? Roughly the time frames are around about, if it's sunny in the morning, you're looking about 5 to 10 minutes just to get that light in your eyes. If it's cloudy, you're looking more 25 to 30 minutes ish. I mean, we're all different, everybody's different. This is the thing even with nutrition, everything in the world, everybody is different and responds differently. You've got to test what works for you. My main thing is, if you've got a dog, you do not need to wear sunglasses when you go for a walk in the morning. If you're going for a little walk around, often people wear sunglasses first thing in the morning as a habit, like you put your coat on or whatever else. You don't need sunglasses at that time in the morning. And I absolutely religiously now, if I get the kids to run around or go outside or do something, it is pre 9:30 in the morning. So that's just a little tip on that. Right, the next question for me was,
can I just answer one that came through, Claire? Sorry, this is why we end up on here for an hour and a half, isn't it? Someone said, I don't mean to make other people feel doom and gloom, but I'm struggling. And I suppose my response to that is, have some awareness around who you're going to and what you're talking about. If you are getting a sense like you are putting too much on other people, A, you can check it out, and B, that's where often that neutral party support can be really helpful. So if you've got a therapist, if you've got, a GP you can go and speak to, if there is someone that's neutral, that's often a really valuable role for them, is that they are someone that's got designated time for you to respond with you, help you think, and that means that you're not always putting your struggles into the presence with your family and friends. Doesn't mean don't do that, of course, but if you're feeling like the frequency is getting too much, that is where those third-party neutral roles are really helpful.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the worst things, this is what I personally do myself, when you are not having a great day, and then you feel bad about not having a great day, and then you complain to someone, and then it almost makes itself worse, because you're like, oh, now I feel bad about it, and now I'm saying it again, and now I'm doing it again, and it all just kind of escalates. So that's fantastic. So one thing from a food perspective that I know a lot of people have asked me about is the struggling with boredom grazing, or just nibbling. You're kind of living in the kitchen, you might be working in the kitchen if that's the only space that is around or available, and if you're bored, or not bored, stressed, any kind of emotion that you like that's going on, food can kind of sometimes fill that gap. So to reiterate what Jackie has just said, awareness is the first stage of change with that. So with food habits, one of the things that I find when you're doing something that's annoying you, so you're like, oh, these bloody biscuits, you get annoyed with yourself about doing it, and you get angry at yourself, which makes you more likely to eat another biscuit. which makes you more likely to pour another glass of wine. So the first thing is to remove judgment for yourself. You are a human being. It is normal to do that. It's not helpful. It's just a strategy that you've put it that's kind of come about to manage your boredom, or manage the stress or whatever it is that's going on at that particular time, right? But it's not, you're not a bad person. It's not wrong, right? So the first thing, sometimes it can be quite helpful to jot down what you're eating. If you're at home and you're like, oh my God, this picking and nibbling is out of control, right? Just put a piece of paper in the kitchen and just write down every time you're eating, not to judge yourself, just to bring it into your awareness that you did it. And then you can analyze it and be like, oh my God, every single day at 3 o'clock, look for the pattern, look for the behavior pattern. It's 3 o'clock, that's the trigger. It's when I get a shitty email from someone. It's when the kids are doing this that I do this. If you can pick up what's the thing that started the eating, then that is the first stage of change, which is this just kind of non-judgmental awareness, right? So then the main things is to try and firstly make it harder to make the choices that you don't want to be making, and make it easier to make other choices. So if you are eating biscuits, drinking something you don't want to be drinking, nibbling, picking, you just need to make it harder to access. So physically, like in my pantry, there's a top shelf where you actually have to get on a stool to get something. If you are constantly picking on a certain thing, make that a little bit less accessible. So you have to get on a stool, because if you have to get on a stool, it's annoying, and then it makes you think, do I really want that? So make it much less difficult, much more difficult to access the things that you are mindlessly grazing on. The other thing is make it much easier to have things that are, better choices. So that's why I have a chopped up veggies in the front of my fridge. Not because I would prefer, a carrot to a chocolate biscuit. I wouldn't, but in my house, they are easier to access than the chocolate biscuits. So that is what I end up defaulting to first. So it's the same thing Jackie was talking about before, was, building a new highway, making it easier, rather than unpicking all this, making it easier to do something else at that time. So if you find it's 5 o'clock that you are doing this picking and nibbling, make it much more difficult to access the things that you don't want to be eating, and easier to have the things that you do. The other thing, and this is, Jackie can build on this after what I've said, because this is very much playing into the psychology side of things, is find another way to deal with that boredom or stress. So this is a really good way if you've got any hobbies or activities. So it might be coloring, it might be having a shower, doing something that's not food related. What I tend to find a lot of the time, when people are trying to solve a food problem, they try and use food to solve the problem. It's not really about the food, mostly. It's about an emotion, a feeling that you've got, and you're using food to fill that gap. And the advice, and I'll throw over to Jackie in a second on this, is actually don't try and replace it with food or drink, because you don't need food or drink, you need something else. So if you've watched my work and know my story before, I had horrific disordered eating for many, 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 many years. And the way I broke that relationship with kind of binging, which I would just do these ridiculous binges, is I started having a shower, right? And I would get in that process where I'm in the mindset where I was like, I'm about to binge, and I would have a shower. That was probably from 15 until I was about 27, 28. I'm now 39. I still use showers as a really effective way to break the cycle when something bad is happening in my life. Sometimes I have 3 showers a day, but it's just an instant default. So Jackie, what would you say? If someone's that stress or boredom.
A million things I want to say right now, Claire, but I'm trying really hard to just be like, swallow it and wait for my turn, Jackie.
Wait for your turn. It is your turn. But it's a really good thing. I think so many people are turning to food and drink, and they think it's a nutrition problem, but it's a psychology thing. It's a coping strategy, but it's mirrored as a nutrition thing. Like, nutrition is getting good food in your body. The way that you eat is quite something different, which is the passion of my life. But I will throw to you because I know
So if
you've
you're
been
going
doing
to
so
start,
well.
if you're going to start writing in the kitchen what you're eating, actually maybe write down what you're feeling before you go and eat something. So when you enter the kitchen, go, what am I feeling right now? I don't have them in this house because we've moved, but in my old house, and I need to redo it, I had little yellow stickers all over my house. They'd be like on the door handle, they'd be on the fridge, they'd be on my car door, they'd be on my mirror. And anytime I saw a yellow dot sticker, I asked myself, what am I feeling right now? And that is a practical way of building a neural pathway in your brain of paying attention to your emotions, because emotions are there to drive behavior. And so if eating is the behavior, what's the emotion sitting behind it? And as Claire said, it won't be about the food. It'll be that you have learnt over time that food makes you feel better in the short term. Or maybe food has been a distraction for you in the short term. So if you can work out what the emotion is, then you've got an ability to go, okay, how do I get calm? What do I need? How do I actually regulate that rather than just eating my feelings away? And we know, for example, that naming an emotion helps you regulate that emotion. My saying is name it to tame it. So if you can say, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling bored, I'm feeling like whatever it is, name it. And actually that emotion will start to come down in intensity. Secondly, if you are acutely distressed, and that's when you turn to eating, then there are acute ways to regulate your emotions, like deep breathing, like having a shower. So Claire's showers have two benefits. One, it's a distraction technique. So probably by the time she gets out of the shower 10 minutes later, there's been enough time for her amygdala to regulate itself. Secondly, you have what's called a vagus nerve in your body, which runs from your heart to your brainstem, and it operates your recovery system. So oxytocin gets released when your vagus nerve is activated, and oxytocin produces positive emotion and it calms. It says to your amygdala, hey, you're safe. You don't need to be on right now. You don't need to be distressed. When you have a shower and your temperature is whacked and changed, your vagus nerve kicks in. So that is a secondary benefit to having the shower. So, I often talk to people about going for a run, having a shower, doing something where they are shocked into a different temperature. Running your wrists under cold water does the same thing. So there's some useful strategies if you're acutely distressed, and that's when you're eating. Long term,
yeah.
If you're working out an emotion pattern, maybe see a therapist and work out why that is and where it comes from and how you can shift and change it. But also talking and writing in the moment are really helpful regulation strategies for emotions. Thinking and ruminating just keeps those emotions at a heightened peak. So maybe write down what's going on for you and why do I feel this way, and actually that process of writing is cathartic and will help you regulate that emotion.
Yeah, and the more, and when you write things down, it's this awareness, isn't it, Jackie? This non-judgmental awareness that I'm completely obsessed with, is that we are just so, I think, and again, it's probably reinforced by the fact that we see on our social media feeds all these people that appear, have very strong opinions or appear to have the answer. They have it all sorted. No, they don't. That's just the projection. They're all having meltdowns in their kitchen. They're eating Nutella out the jar. They're doing that. They're just not telling you, right?
And here's my quote I was going to say later, but give it to you now. Other people's outsides can never compare to your insides, which is just what you're saying, Claire.
It's so true. And I just think that, more and more people are seeing through that, but it's still subconsciously, you're not, when you're looking through the stuff, you're kind of comparing yourself, and it's kind of going, it is normal to feel like you're falling apart in the world sometimes, and whatever anyone else's life is looking like. So I've got another question for you, Jackie, which is, how do you regain your resilience and confidence when it's been knocked? So if you've I think maybe we've answered this before, but it is that whole people just feeling like they've lost themselves, and they just lost your confidence in yourself and your ability, particularly people losing their jobs and, the uncertainty of all that stuff.
You need to be active with it, and you need to have a plan. So if we go back to my flourishing to languishing, you don't just get out of bed and be a lucky person that flourishes through life. Well-being and mental health is the small things and the small choices you make every single day. It is that cumulative effect of the things we do that are helpful for us that is going to help build your resilience, build your well-being, build your haora, whatever term you want to use. I'm moving away from the term resilience. I'm gonna admit to you all.
I know it's been overused.
It's been overused, and it actually makes me feel a bit cringy now when I hear it, because it's still the go-to word for some people. But I think it's been overused, and I think we need to just talk about how do we be well, you know, and how do we live a life that's fulfilling and satisfying for us and the people around us. So that's just a bit of my thought process at the moment. So, you know, if you want to live well, if you want to manage life's challenges, if you want to enjoy your life and add purpose, I use the New Zealand Māori model Te Whare Tapawhā as a very tangible way to look at what you're doing for your well-being and to plan. And as the wonderful Sir J.K. says, you need a well-being plan when life is going shitty and actually when life's going good and not. You know, so don't just have a well-being plan for when things fall apart. You need a well-being plan for when things are going well too, so that we can consistently put those actions in place. So Te Whare Tapawhā, for those that don't know, was created by a man called Sir Mason Jury here in New Zealand. Picture a marae or a meeting house, and this model says that a meeting house, a marae, has 4 walls, and you need those 4 walls for your whare to stand up. And if one of those walls falls down or gets a crack or gets weak, your building is shoddy, it's shaky, and the more walls that come down, your roof's going to come down, right? So the 4 walls of Te Whare Tapawhā, which are the 4 pillars or the 4 walls of your well-being. One is te taha tinana, your physical health. So what are you doing for your physical well-being every day? That includes, of course, the basics: sleeping, eating, exercising, alcohol and drug consumption, but also rest is in there. And in the day and age we're living in, the information overload bombardment that we get from being on screens, from working on screens now, from digesting all of our information via a screen. If you go back to what Claire was saying before, we were not designed to be sitting in front of a computer as a human being. We were designed to be out there walking in the bush. It's where my happy place is. You know, what are you doing to get your rest through the day? So that's one component. The second is te taha hingingaro, which is your psychological well-being. And there's lots of things you could be doing for that. But the ones I want to focus on today, we've mentioned earlier, is how much positive emotion do you get in your day? So again, from an evolutionary perspective, human beings are designed to soak up and hold on to the negative, because your brain thinks it's going to help you in the future. You know, if you think back in the day, if I can remember where that bear came out from and what I was doing and what it smelt like and what the day was like, I'll be safe next time. You know, how many hundreds of years later, we're no different. So your brain takes notice of all the shitty, bad, awful things that happen, and it stores it up and holds them. So in terms of building our well-being, part of what we have to do is actively notice and actively generate positive things in our day. So do you practice gratitude daily? Do you savor the good things? Are you actually present in moments where are you stuck scrolling on a phone? You know, like we often look forward to things, and then when we get there, we're not even present and we miss it. You know, do you, you know, is that your conversations with friends? What do you do? What do you do? Gardening, cooking, I don't know, whatever it is that brings short bursts of positive emotion every day. And we need 3 positive to 1 negative emotion just to balance. So if you want your emotional health and well-being to be good, you need a better than 3 to 1 ratio daily.
That's crazy when you think about what the default ratio is.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely 3 to 1 the other way, isn't it?
Yeah. And
wow.
For anyone that's a leader in a team, for your team to be positive, there needs to be 7 to 1 into positive to negative interactions in the team, for the team to be positive and effective.
Wow.
Positive emotions from a team leader have way more impact on work output than many other things. Anyway, we're not here talking about work.
No, but this is good to know. because you know, a lot of people in the workplace will be struggling to motivate other people, like as somebody at work. Or it's, you know, you might have your home situation sort of, but you've got to take yourself out and show up at work, if you're allowed to go to work now.
Of course, the other bit to that is if you're having unpleasant emotions, that's where the regulation side comes in terms of your plan. The other part to that psychological health is your thinking. So you know, again, it's things like focus on what you can control, not the uncontrollables. It's if you have persistent inner critic, unhelpful thinking, naming that can be a useful way of, again, taming it. So, hey, that's my anxiety brain. Hey, that's my I'm not good enough story. You know, if you can like name the thoughts that are coming into your brain, it actually gives you some distance. It allows you to unhook from those helpful thoughts, and it decreases the intensity and the impact it has on you. There's notes on my Facebook page around how you can help balance your thinking. Actually, I did a whole series on it at the end of last year about how to balance those negative thoughts. The third component is te taha whānau, which is your social connection, and we spoke about that earlier, about who is in your life and how you're getting that good social connection. Especially, again, if you're at work and you're missing your teammates, how in your team have you decided that you're going to connect meaningfully with each other when you're not physically in the same place? Do you just jump on calls and go straight into meeting things, or have you got other things around you so that you're still connecting as people? The last one is te taha wairua, and this is what makes this model different to any other wellbeing model in the world, is that it talks about your spiritual mental health. And your spiritual mental health is, who are you? What's the essence of you? What gives you purpose? What gives you meaning? What are your values? And do your behaviours align with your values? Claire, I'm going to add a prize to the prize pack.
Yes.
I've got values cards that I've yet to market, but they're all sitting in my garage because I don't have enough time to box them and market them. But they're a very helpful tool that enables you to go, what do I most value in my life? And then there's some exercises you go through around whether what you're doing in your life is matching those values. And we know that when your actions are in line with your values, your well-being goes up. So if you sit down with that map and Google Te Whare Tapawha, I'll put a picture of it on my page after this. Look at those 4 areas and write what you're doing in them already. What is helpful that you're doing in all those 4 walls? Write what the barriers are to them. What gets in the way of you getting that pillar, that wall fulfilled for you, and then problem solve what you can do to help boost it up. So, every single one of those areas of wellbeing is important. If you neglect any of them, your wellbeing, you're going to come down that flourishing, languishing scale. So that's my practical way of actually how you start to build your wellbeing back up.
Amazing. Like transfixed. At least I can stir them like this. When I watch these things back, I'm like, because crazy things with your face. Right, we're coming on to a nutrition question now, which is, given that I'm at home all the time, I am snacking a lot. Is snacking a good thing? And what can I have other than bliss balls? So, great question. Frequency of eating. Surprise, surprise, there is no one size fits all for frequency of eating. The main things that you need to understand is that we are, one, not designed to eat all the time. Constant picking, nibbling, grazing way of eating, not ideal for most people, okay? Nor are we supposed to be eating very, very late in the evening and then, the second you wake up, food in your mouth. There needs to be a gap between, your stomach being empty, your stomach not being completely full or feeling like you've got to, keep it going all the time, is not. So that whole, you need to eat all the time to keep your metabolism going. It's just old science, right? Science develops like anything else. So our TVs used to be like massive big squares, and now they're thin and they're tiny because we've learned how to make better TVs, right? Science is the same. It's not that people were wrong before. It's just that when information changes, it's just because that's what the research showed then, and now we know way more. So a lot of these, the old kind of rules around food are just because that's what people thought at the time. So the main thing is we do need a reasonable gap overnight. I kind of get most people, and I aim for myself, around a good 10 to 12 hours without food, between your last meal and your first meal. Obviously, there's all sorts of fasting variations that work for some people, and people extend that out sometimes to 14 hours, sometimes 16 hours. But that is, something that we work on at Mission Nutrition. My team would on individual variants, but essentially some kind of overnight time without food is really important, because as the same as light and darkness controls things in the daytime, not having food in your stomach at nighttime controls all sorts of other things as well. So that fed and fasted state is part of communicating with the body, right? During the daytime, how often do you need to eat? The main thing I would just say is that if you are constantly grazing and nibbling, unless you find that's really working for you, I would suggest a more structured way of eating. That could be 3 meals, that could be 4. I eat in kind of 4 eating episodes. That kind of works for me. I have a late breakfast around about 9:30. I have a latish lunch, then I eat again, and then I make sure, I don't eat after kind of 7 o'clock at night, right? That's how the pattern of eating that works for me. The main thing with snacks is a snack is a small, nourishing meal by definition. Well, by a nutritional definition anyway, right? It is not a biscuit. Like, that's a treat. I hate the word treat, actually. I actually swore when I had kids I was never going to use the word treat, but I was like, how else do we define these these extra foods? Like, there's no other way of talking about biscuits, aren't they?
Yummy food.
They're yummy, and they play a role in our lives. They absolutely do. But that's a different category to a nourishing snack. So in terms of snacks, ideally should be things that are adding nutrients to your day. If you are snacking, the main thing I would say, if you're going to eat something, commit to eating it. Don't stand in the pantry and think I'm not going to eat anything, and then you're like, do you know what? You'd eat 10 times more when you're standing in the pantry than if you put it on a plate. So commit to eating. So these are a couple of things that I eat. If I eat a piece of fruit, be it an apple or a pear, anything like that, some of those harder fruits, banana, I tend to have a tablespoon of peanut butter with it, on it, with it, by it, or a small handful of nuts, because the combination of the fat and the protein along with the carbohydrate in the fruit is a really rounded meal. Otherwise, you have an apple and you're kind of like, still not kind of done. So, have something else. So that combo is quite good. I make a lot of popcorn at home because it's really cheap, and B vitamins, which are good for energy, loads and loads of fiber, pretty low energy in terms of, and it's a whole grain.
Do you put anything on the popcorn?
Well, when I make it myself, I mean, sometimes I put a tiny little bit of salt on it, but I cook it in a little bit of oil, and I'm cooking it. You can get away with a lot less sugar and salt if you cook it in a pan yourself than if you don't, because when it's warm, it's just much nicer. My kids don't get that luxury. They get it plain. I may have a little pinch of salt myself, got to be honest. Then what else do I have? Oh, my combo, which if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see this literally all the time. But I eat yogurt, unsweetened yogurt, with fruit of any variation, a small serving of fruit, and a tablespoon of muesli, granola, rolled oats kind of combo. And when you think about the combinations of every different fruit and every different kind of nut and seed combos, that would be my staple snack. And then I often have, I make a batch of soup on a Sunday and I have these chopped up veggies in the fridge. So main thing around snacking is commit, and just try not to be doing grazing. But if anyone's got any questions on snacking, post them now, and I will come back to that at the end if you've got any questions on what you're snacking on or the time that you're eating during the day. I think it's 20% of as Kiwis are shift workers. I know that's really challenging in terms of eating patterns. I know that's really difficult. But the main thing I would say for anyone that's a shift worker is try and have a good 6 or so hours without food at a consistent time. So I know that shifts kind of change around, but if unless you're working night shift every night, try to keep some of that nighttime without food, so that you're getting a consistent gap even through the night. So that would be my tip there. Right, my next question for you, Jackie.
It's Claire's
organised here.
All I can think about when Claire talks about that is I am sleep training my 15-week-old daughter with an amazing Karatani nurse. And before we even got to the sleep, she said to me, Jackie, do you know you fed your child 11 times in the last 24 hours? She is snacking. She is on a grazing diet. Before we even go to the sleep, you've got to feed her every 4 hours so she starts feeding properly. And it's so true. 3 days, she's now only waking once at night, not 6 times at night. And so as Claire's talking about snacking, all I'm thinking about is my child and her snacking on me versus eating properly.
Yeah. But that's what but get used to it. I'd exactly say with my children, and then get the old sleep routine going, and they're like, oh, predictability. Okay, this is good. Oh yeah, kids, they're sent to test you, aren't they? In so many ways. So the last question that we've got from here, and then we'll go to answer the questions in the comments, is, I know it's not good, but I always fall into the trap of comparing myself to others. How do I stop this and stop it bothering me, I suppose, why do we compare ourselves to others? And yeah,
Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. So we just hold that. Comparison is the thief of joy. Why do we do it? How is it helpful to us? Social comparison theory from a psychology perspective came out in the 1950s. The basis to that theory is we compare ourselves to others so that we have a benchmark for ourselves. And you can upward compare and you can downward compare. You can upward compare, which might make you feel like crap because you think I'm not good enough as other people. But also upward comparisons can actually be helpful because it can inspire you. Hey, that person started off in a similar position to me and look where they've got to. I can do that too. So upward comparisons sometimes can actually be helpful. And if it's not in a helpful way, then it can make us feel worse about ourselves. Downward comparisons, where we compare other people that potentially are worse at something than us or they're less fortunate, the theory is that will make your self-esteem increase, etc. And when you look at, for example, downward comparison, there's been research, for example, where women with breast cancer would say to themselves, look, well, yes, we're going through breast cancer, but look, we're so much more fortunate than people that have got X, Y, and Z going on in their life, or at least we've got care, or etc. And actually sometimes that downward comparison could be helpful in that way. So there's kind of theory behind comparisons, what I'm trying to say.
Well, there must be a reason why we do it. I mean, it's this...
And mostly we compare against our peers. But because of social media and the way in which we live now, sounds like any topic with psychology, you can talk about social media these days, can't you? But we are now comparing, as we spoke about earlier, what's fully going on for us with only a very selected, purposeful window into somebody else's life. So if you're thinking about all the things that are going on for you and you are comparing to the picture perfect postcard that you see online, you're not doing an accurate self up or down comparison. You are comparing your inside to someone's outside, and you're going to lose every time you do that. So what can we actually do to kind of help us with that self-comparison, or if we get stuck in that trap of comparing ourselves to other people's lives? One, know your trigger. Is there a certain time, is there something that goes on in your life that makes you kind of fall into that trap of comparing yourself to other people? Because the comparing really is about what's going on for you. It's got really nothing to do with the other people. So, what are you trying to compare to? What's missing in your life? What are you feeling like it's not okay, etc.? Like what's going on underneath for you, and can you work that out? Because if you can work the trigger out, if you can have the awareness of that, you're more likely to stop yourself falling into a comparison trap than just autopiloting it. Get to know your inner critic, because your inner critic will come up and sit on your shoulder and tell you all the awful things about you and why you're not as good as other people. And inner critics aren't true. They aren't factual. They're just negative self-talk. And so if you can think, thoughts are just words strung together. They're not facts. That's a really helpful thing to hold on to when you're thinking about your negative thoughts. But also if you can go, hey, that's my inner critic talking, again, it's that name it to tame it. It's that awareness around that. Also in the psychology world at the moment, a huge, as Claire said, we shift with research. We learn more about us and people and human beings, and our practice shifts and changes. And lots of what therapists are practicing with people right now is called self-compassion theory. And it sounds really simple, but we're really bad at it. Do you treat yourself like you would treat your friend? Do you treat yourself like you treat a family member, like you treat your co-workers? And actually, can you start to say to yourself, okay, if if this was my friend in this position, what would I say to them? What would I suggest they do? And actually, if I can start to hold some compassion and be a good friend to myself, that's going to help me probably not fall into this trap of comparing all the time. Practicing gratitude every day and writing a list of your achievements every day is also really helpful. It's helpful for comparison, and it's helpful for this languishing myth. So some of the practical ways of getting over languishing, some of the practical ways of stopping yourself comparing, is by getting small wins every day. So can you actually go, what am I going to do today that I can cross that item off the list, or I can get a sense of accomplishment or satisfaction, and I can have a yay me moment? That's actually really important, and writing makes it concrete. So, you have 3 million thoughts going around in your brain, but when you write something down, it's contained within the 4 edges of that page, and it makes it real. So at the end of every day, I suggest that people do their 3 small things they're grateful for and the 3 things they achieved that day. It's a really good self-esteem booster. And I've spoken about it before, but one of my favourite books is called Option B, which was written by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook. Her husband unexpectedly died, and it's her story of resilience through grief. Adam Grant is a psychologist I've had on my podcast, Mind Brew. He's amazing. He's one of probably the biggest TED talkers ever on TED Talks. He's a guru in the field, and he's the co-author. And Sheryl talks about when her self-esteem was completely lost after her husband died. One of the exercises Adam gave her was to write down her achievements at the end of the day, because you have to commit to the page and you have to come up with something.
Yeah.
So they're kind of some everyday strategies that can help you get out of that trap of comparing and actually start building your own self-esteem back up, so the need is not there to compare.
Amazing. I tell you one thing, I've drawn this really strange picture. I'm just going to show everyone this, if I can even show on my camera. Yeah. Right. When I was, again, people that follow me, you'll know this already, but obviously I've been through my own struggles a lot and had a lot of therapy. And this picture was a game changer for me. I had this on Post-it notes, a bit like your sticky note, in various different places around me, to remind me that what I was thinking or what was going on had nothing to do with me as a person. It didn't mean I was a bad person. It was just this separation. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, the self-talk stuff, or for me, binging, and I was making that who I was, and making this comparison, all this and stuff. And actually just this picture was the one thing that got me to continually remind myself that my thoughts and what is going on in my head is not who I am. So anyway, just in case you want to draw this little picture for yourself.
That's your version of my thoughts are not facts, they're just words. It's funny, you get one thing, isn't it? And it sticks with you. It sticks with
me. That has been, over 10 years since I've done, but I've explained to the people, I've sat with friends who are, in very bad ways, and just they can't hear anything else, but just hearing that the things that are going on in your head have nothing to do with who you are can be that's enough of a game changer. We'll go to questions now. So I've just opened a couple of questions that have gone on the side to things that we've talked about before. I'll just do the foodie ones first. I'm going to throw back to Jackie. So my 5 top superfoods. So I believe in a super diet, not superfoods, but what would be my 5 top foods? Probably oats, high fiber, cheap, extremely versatile, breakfast snacks, baking, loads.
She was going to say dinner then. It was almost about to come out.
Literally, but you can make savory porridge is one of the recipes that we've got at our healthy food guide. Anything, they're cheap. So oats would be 1. Eggs would probably be my 2nd. good source of protein, lots of different vitamins and minerals in there, really affordable. Then I would have probably your frozen peas, frozen veggies, because they're, again, affordable. You don't need to eat super expensive vegetables. Variety of vegetables are good for you. Mussels would probably be my other one. Mussels are cheap. They are really, really good. Great source of iron, zinc. There's a question about immunity boosting down here. So 2 of the most important things to make sure you're getting enough of: iron, zinc. Iron, 1 in 14 women in New Zealand are low in iron. And it's of all the people that are reducing their intake of meat in New Zealand, it's women. Now, that is not a bad thing to be moving towards a plant-based diet, but it is incredibly, or can be, challenging to get enough iron. So if you're tired, run down, and your immune system's not working, and you don't eat much red meat, unless you are being really, really organized with your iron from other sources, it's worth getting your blood test next time you go to the doctors to check your iron status if you are constantly getting run down and you are tired all the time. So that would be my mussels. That's 4. And then some fatty, oily. So you're probably salmon and avocado, so your oily, healthy fats. So that would be, and nuts and seeds. Did I say those? Nuts and seeds, definitely. So that's my 5 healthy foods. Your yogurt combination with granola and rolled oats. Can you have rolled oats uncooked? Yes, you can have rolled oats uncooked. Rolled oats are steamed. That's how they become flat. So an oat, when it's in its natural state, looks like a bit of brown rice, but they steam it and roll it, which is how it becomes rolled. So it has been, I'm not saying cooked, but it's been steamed. It is, you can eat them without cooking them further. If you use them raw, I tend to play with the variety, different brands. When you buy rolled oats, different brands, some are chunkier than others. So I tend to have the softer ones if I'm eating them raw. But yes, you can eat them raw. So Jackie, my question is antidepressants.
I'm gonna steal one that I want to answer.
Oh yeah.
Which is, how do you reduce cortisol, and how do you reduce cortisol in teenagers?
Great.
Well,
yeah.
How you reduce cortisol is the same in all human beings. The difference with teenagers is probably around their neurodevelopment in terms of the level of emotion that you might see, or the level of stress. And if you take my handy model of the brain, look at my poor nails from lockdown. I should use my other hand because that's not on it bad both ways. This is your brain stem. It keeps you alive. It keeps your heart beating. Blah blah blah. The middle of your brain, the oldest part, or second oldest part of your brain, is where your amygdala is, your fight or flight center. It's also where your hippocampus is, which is where you generate emotions from. The front of your brain, on top, is your prefrontal cortex. That's your adult brain. It helps you regulate and problem solve and be wise in your decision making, etc. Teenagers haven't got this fully developed till they're 25. Girls develop it before boys. So if you think about that, you've already got heightened emotions because you're more likely to get the stress, the big emotion, from young people. Cortisol is our long-term stress hormone. So when you first see stress and big emotions from people, that's more likely to be their adrenaline, and then the longer that goes on, that's their cortisol. How do we help reduce that, and how do we help get as much of that frontal lobe online for us as possible? Things like, from a physical point of view, diaphragmatic breathing from your belly is a shortcut to your amygdala to calm down, to drop those stress hormones. Having the shower, activating your vagus nerve, whether that's showers, cold water on your wrists, going outside for a walk in the wind, being able to whack yourself with a change of temperature is helpful. Exercise is helpful. It releases endorphins and serotonin. Serotonin is your happy drug. More serotonin you have, the less your cortisol, it brings your cortisol down. Dancing and singing is also a very effective, proven way of bringing down cortisol and increasing serotonin. So, I don't know, someone asked about students. Play a song at the start of your lesson. I once had a lecturer that every time you walked into the lecture, this was at Otago Uni a long time ago, he had music playing. And it put you in a good mood before the lecture started, and actually that meant you were more focused when he was a psych teacher. He knew what he was doing. So music and singing and dancing are really good for cortisol and stress. Talking with someone brings down cortisol. Yoga and relaxing brings down cortisol. Mindfulness, whether that's mindfulness on an app like Headspace, whether that's mindfulness, we just are going to go outside and sit and be in nature. And actually, being in nature 20 minutes a day drops your cortisol by, I think it's 16%. I read that research a little while ago now, but I'm pretty sure 20 minutes, 16% reduction in your cortisol. So there are some physical ways in which you can reduce your cortisol. And I think always when we're thinking about stress, like what's your good foundation pillar? If your house is standing, your te whare tapa whā, if all your basics are in place consistently, you're less likely to see those big stress shifts. And if you do, then there's some quick ways that you can bring them down.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. The thing is, there's a lot we can do. I guess that the main thing that I've taken from everything that you said today is that even just small changes can shift, big things. And actually, as I guess to summarize also, what both Jackie and I have been talking about a lot this evening is that awareness, being aware of yourself and being aware of your thoughts and being aware of why you're eating that, why you're drinking that, why you're feeling that, or, which all kind of plays into the same side, is really, really important. Now I'm aware of time, 9:10, Jackie. Oh, we've done quite well for us, actually. So just to let you know, we'll wrap up there, but we've got that prize pack. So we will post the link in so that you can see that again. And we really, really appreciate you being here and taking the time to turn Netflix off. Goodness.
New Amsterdam is off.
Can you believe I literally don't watch TV at all? I probably need to watch more TV, but and keep up with the cool stuff. But thank you for tuning in this evening and taking the time, and we look forward to chatting to you again. Share this video with anyone that you think it's helpful, and check out Jackie's book if you have got little ones that need help in the right direction. But have a lovely evening, sleep well, make sure that you go outside tomorrow morning and get that light in your eyes, and start being aware of your thoughts tomorrow. But thank you very much, Jackie, for your time.
And my last comment to everyone is all of these things we're talking about have been from an individual perspective, what you can do for you. Please be aware, again, the environment we are living in is not optimal. So just really hold that compassion for yourself. It's like if you're supporting a child and they live in a family where there's arguing all the time, you do as much as you can with the kid to regulate the stress. But if the home environment doesn't shift, they're still going to struggle. And so it's the same for us you can do what you can and do your best. But if you can have realistic expectations and hold the compassion, it's going to enable you to get through better than just trying to put all these new habits in place and why am I getting anywhere with it? And
one thing at a time, and give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. You're doing better than you think is probably the truth. But I hope that's been helpful. We look forward to seeing you again. Have a wonderful sleep and take care. See you.
Bye.